You did not lose that teacher in her exit interview. You lost her in week 3 when no one checked in with her and she decided nobody was going to. Today, I'm handing you a 30, 60, 90-day roadmap that catches a resignation before it ever gets typed.
Elevating childhood education, where leaders rise, children thrive, and your program becomes a legacy of excellence.
Last time we built your hiring pipeline, the checklist, the posting, the interview script that gets the right person in the door. But I have watched programs do a flawless hire and lose that same person by month 4. Onboarding is not orientation. Orientation is 1 day. Onboarding is 90 days or even more. Most programs treat day 1 like the finish line. Paperwork signed, badge issued, done. That is the starting line. What happens in the next 12 weeks decides whether this person is still on your roster at month 6. I have seen onboarding plans that are 1 sentence long. Shadow someone for a day. That is not a plan. That is a hope and a prayer. And I love a prayer, but it is not a retention strategy. Let's talk about what actually happens in those 90 days, because most turnover isn't a single bad moment. It's a slow accumulation of no one checked in on me. Days 1 through 30 are about belonging, not about performance. They're brand new. So this is where you confirm what your culture is, your safety procedures, and relationships. A real assigned mentor, not ask around if you need something. A new hire who doesn't feel oriented by day 30 is already mentally job searching by day 45. Days 30 through 60 shift toward applied practice. This is where feedback starts, real specific, tied to actual classroom moments, not a generic, you're doing great. This is also where you catch the small misalignments early before they calcify into habits. Days 60 through 90 are about integration and growth, a formal check-in, a real conversation about where this person sees themselves growing, and a clear signal that you're invested past the 90-day mark, not just evaluating whether or not to keep them. The exit almost always starts earlier than the exit interview. That's why this roadmap exists, so you catch the disengagement while it's still fixable. You cannot mentor buddy your way out of a program that has no plan. A buddy is not a system. And here's what nobody tells new directors. Retention is not a personality trait that some staff have and others don't. It is a designed experience. You are either designing it on purpose or your new hires are experiencing whatever happens by accident. And so today we're going to build this together. And again, it is in the description box below where you're able to get your own link so that you can download and follow along with us. Or if you want to do that later and just follow along with us, you can do that as well. Get a piece of paper or pen, however you'd like to follow along. But let's build this together. And I'm calling it the 30, 60, 90-day onboarding and retention roadmap. So let's build this together right now online together using our same open lead teacher role from the hiring pipeline that we talked about in our working example. And here we are back at our New Year's setup toolkit, and we're going to week 2, the 30, 60, 90-day onboarding and retention roadmap. So in step 1, the days 1 through 30 column. So what we can do is we can fill in these roles together. And so here are the examples that will follow here together. And of course, you can adjust it to meet the needs of your program. But as far as the action that we are designated to this, and then When it's done, this is our indication that it is done. So in days 1 through 30, we're talking about belonging. Remember, we're not talking about performance because they are new. So we want to give them a sense of belonging, acclimate them to the new environment, the new culture, and all of that. And so here, just as some samples of actions, make this a little larger on my end. And so you'll see here for the action, it says that mentor assigned and first meeting scheduled before day 1, right? So that's something that you want to make sure you do. So these are all of the steps, so all the actions that we will take in order to help develop that sense of belonging. The next one is required compliance paperwork and clearances confirmed complete, right? And so even some programs, as does mine, requires that all of this is complete even before day 1, right? And so some agencies may give you a little buffer, a little grace period to get everything completed, but it is best practice to get it done as soon as possible, preferably before day 1. But this is just, again, this is an example, and you would modify it based on your program's needs. The next one is classroom and ratio orientation walkthrough schedules for day 1. Next, culture and philosophy conversations scheduled for week 1. And then day 30, you have an informal check-in date locked on the calendar before the start date, right? So even before they begin, you want to have it planned out that these are going to be my times where I'm going to commit myself to these action steps. And then for days 30 through 60, then there we're talking about first structured feedback conversation scheduled, tied to specific observed classroom moments. So you want to, of course, schedule yourself to go in and do some observations, informal. Next, you have one co-planning session with the mentor built into the schedule. So whoever you assign to be the buddy or the mentor, that this new hire will shadow and learn from and be able to kind of glean from. That person, you want to make sure that you have it built into the schedule, some co-planning sessions where they're able to plan. And so this, you do not have to, it does not have to be you as a director. It can be very difficult to have to try to figure out how to work this into your schedule. It does not have to be you. It should be someone that is acclimated in or sufficient, has some level of experience, but they are fluent in the policies, the protocols, the processes of our program. So that means if they're a head teacher, you have them shadowing or having a buddy of another head teacher, then you want to make sure that that person is well versed in the curriculum, well versed in whatever documentation that has to be completed, right? So you just want to, it doesn't have to be you. It can be anyone on your team that has proven experience. It doesn't have to be an assistant director. It doesn't have to be a teacher in charge either, but someone that is competent in their role that could serve as a good support to this new person coming in. And so you want to have these things scheduled and planned prior to. The next one is midpoint self-reflection prompt given to the new hire in writing. So you want them to give a self-reflection. How do you think it's going? How are you feeling about the process and the new environment and the new relationships that are being built? And then you want to have a formal 60-day written check-in where you name 3 strengths and 1 named area of growth. So you talk about some strengths that have been identified as well as an area of growth. And then next you want to have days 60 through 90, right? And so I understand that some programs may have a different window where they're looking at this. My agency, we have 120 days of as is the end of our selection period, right? So I expand this beyond the 90 days to accommodate the 120 days. But this is just giving, most programs have a 90-day, a 3-month probationary or selection period. And so this is what this is designed to be able to support. So in days 60 through 90, you want to first have a formal 90-day review, right? And so that happens at the end of your selection period or your probationary period. So if it's the 90 days to 120 days, whichever it is. So you want to have your formal review, and then you want to sit down and you want to talk about it, right? So you want to talk about also if whether or not it is a good fit, and what are the two-way program. So you want it to be a two-way discussion, right? So you want it to be, you want to talk about how it fits, how the role is a fit, whether it is or if it isn't, what the growth goals are, and what are the two-way program, what's the two-way program feedback. So this is more so focused on how has it been going so far, and you're able to tell because there has been 3 months at this point that has been spent, and you've been able to do those observations, and you have that buddy, that mentor that is in place that could also give you feedback on how well the person is doing, as you will not be with them all the time. Professional development goals that are set collaboratively for the next 2 quarters. At my program, we do what we call a professional development plan for each of the staff, right? And so that is where we would use to check in with them, determine or establish with them any goals. And so this is a collaborative effort where we come together and we set those goals because we want to set them up to win. We want to have them grow in their skill set. And even as they're still acclimating and learning our processes and how we do things, we do also want them to grow as a professional. And that's an example of what we do, but it can be whatever it is at your program. But the idea is that you want to sit with them and develop goals for moving forward. And so whether or not it's in direct relation to whatever you have seen over the last 3 months, over that probationary period, those things that you've seen that you want to address, but there may also be some things that the candidate would like to work on, whether or not it's go back to school or become more familiar with how to handle difficult behaviors or work with students with disabilities, right? So the individual, the candidate the employee may also have some ideas of some goals that they would like to work on that become a part of what you work on together collaboratively. And then direct retention conversation. And so, don't assume anything. You can have a very direct conversation. What would make you stay another year? And we can call that a retention interview where you ask some questions. We talked about that in another episode where you just ask some questions about how they feel in this environment. Do they feel supported? And so you can have them to start to think, given the ideal situation, what would make you stay another year, another 3 years, another 5 years? And so you want to make sure that you ask the questions to see where they are. Don't just assume, because many times you can, people can have a certain demeanor and you think that they are happy, and they're really miserable on the inside, right? So you don't want to assume anything, but you want to ask the question, have a very direct conversation about it. And so this concludes our tool here, but this is our 30, 60, 90-day onboarding and retention roadmap. So it just leads us on this path, this 90-day path of how we support, how we check in with them, how we have different phases of what we work on, that we're working on belonging in days 1 through 30. And then 30 through 60, you want to work on applied practice and real feedback. Right. So you want to start giving them something that can truly be helpful. And then when we get to days 60 through 90, our focus is then in that phase, integration and growth. That's where we begin to give them the formal feedback. You do the review, let them know how it's going, based on your observations. Also hear from them if whether or not they feel that it is a good fit. And so again, this is another tool that you can just use, tweak it, download it, tweak it, put it on your letterhead, however you'd like to use it. But this is a tool that could be helpful to you as far as when it comes to retention, because if we do not intentionally plan for this, then we leave everything up to chance. And so we don't want that to be the case, because when we leave things to chance, then anything can determine how a person acclimates to the environment, how they feel in the environment. To have more involvement, and we want to be more intentional about building that relationship relationship, building that sense of belonging, acclimating them into the program and into the culture. We want to be very intentional about doing that. And so this tool can be used to help you, to just kind of help you guide, as well as can help you also develop your processes or your SOP around retention and support to staff, the onboarding process. And so by the end of this segment, or by the end of this 90-day period, this new hire has a roadmap that reads like, we planned for you to stay before you even walked in the door. It really shows the intentionality and making people feel that they belong to the environment and that you care about them being there. So this scales the same way the hiring pipeline did. A family child care provider bringing on her first assistant needs this exact same three-phase structure, just with fewer boxes per row. A 40 staff center needs it formalized in an HR system. The architecture does not change, the format is still the same. And if you're running a faith-based program, this roadmap also looks or gives you language for something ministries often skip, a real professional growth conversation, not just a spiritual check-in. Staff need both. The math on this is not complicated. Replacing a teacher costs your recruiting time, your onboarding time again, and a classroom of children absorbing yet another transition. A 90-day investment in one person is cheaper than starting the hiring pipeline over in month 5, or we're doing it consecutively. If you want this roadmap adapted to your program's actual staffing structure and licensing requirements, that's exactly what I build in a consulting session. So feel free to book your discovery call. The link is in the description below, but we develop and design based on your goals and your needs for your specific program. You have a vision for what you would like to see accomplished, and it is still attainable. So check the link in the description and sign up for a free discovery call so that we can discuss how we can support you. And let me leave you with this. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So your onboarding roadmap is how you make someone feel remembered on purpose, intentionally, for 90 days. So once someone's staying, the next question is whether you actually know what's happening in their classroom. Watch the observation nobody prepares you for. Watch the observation no one prepares you for. Coaching versus compliance in early childhood classrooms. That will be our next video, because a retention plan without real observation is just hoping that things go well, or hoping that things are fine without a real process and without a real system. And I'll also share a video in the description below so that you can watch another video where we go a little deeper in talking about the onboarding process. And so I believe that it will be tremendously helpful as we go a little bit deeper into that discussion. So do watch that episode. Until next time, let's continue to elevate early childhood education together.